watching the Forefront Church video podcast. And wherever you're at viewing online, we just want to say thank you and welcome. And one of the ways that we can help connect with you is we want to hear from you and where you're at and how we can help. And so head over to forefrontchurch.info after the message and click the Connect tab. It's a great way for us to help you along your spiritual journey as you connect with God and learn about Jesus. And so sit back, relax. We hope that you're challenged and encouraged from today's message. Enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many will enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow is the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. This has terrified me, this phrasing, this passage, since I was about 12. I was sitting in church with my mom and dad, and this big gentleman who had a robust voice. Think like James Earl Jones. And he gets up and reads these words. And I immediately think to myself, at 12 years old, having very much so an existential crisis. Well, which road am I on? Like, which gate? In my parents bringing me to faith, I wasn't even sure if I was keen on the whole idea of God, if I believed in Him or not. All of that was moving around the divine and faith. And so I'm like, all right, do I believe in you? If so, like, am I on this road? Am I on this narrow one? What's going on? And it was a difficult thing for me to think about. And as I'm going through this, in my mind, as this gentleman is up there and he's speaking, he begins to turn a corner. One that brings hope and joy. He said, and it didn't come down as a hammer of condemnation. It was, there's a better way. And even Jesus, as he started out in his teaching, it wasn't called Christianity, it was called the way. And there was something to this Middle Eastern Jewish rabbi that people were gravitating towards and go, you know what, there might be something to, instead of following this broad path, that maybe what he's saying, there is a better way at this. But it seems like it's going to be hard. It seems like there might be challenges ahead. As I'm battling through that, I think, you know what, I might just try this. I think I might have been going down this road, but I'm going to try this road. That was on Sunday morning. Then Monday came. And about 14 hours after I had heard that message, not a lot had changed in me. I had the same friends, had the same attitude about life, and I was doing all the same things that I had done. And while I kind of had forgotten the wisdom that had been shared with me the day before. See, I really wanted to, but there was all kinds of things that were holding back, some that I absolutely loved, some that I thought were so anchored in my identity that years later you come to find out that's not even who you are, really. And that there was a better way in store for me. My wife, Carrie, went on a women's retreat about, say 7 years back or so, and at the time, we only had 2 daughters. Now we have 3. A lot has changed. When you go from man-to-man to zone defense, a lot changes. And I was excited for her that she could go and be with a bunch of other women from the church and go and do their thing. And so I was left with our 2 oldest that we have now. And they were past the age where they just kind of sit and you look at them, and then you can leave the room and come back and they're like right where you left them. They were old enough to talk and do, interact, and that's such a fun time as a parent. And so I was like, what do you guys want to do? And when you ask a kid what they want to do, it's not normally like, I want to do whatever. I was like, what do you want to do? And they're like, we want to build a fort. Like, there's so much like enthusiasm and interaction. I'm like, whoa, easy. And they're like, we want to build a fort. And they're going crazy. I'm like, all right. And as a dad, I'm like, we don't build a fort, we build a castle. And so they're like, okay. And so we have a bunch of folding chairs at our house, and we get out all the folding chairs out of the closet, and we fold those out, and we're getting the baby gate. We've extended that out so we can add like a roof, and then we get the big 8-foot folding table, Rubbermaid tables out, and the card tables. I mean, this thing's massive. And in our den, it's about 30, it is huge. It's a good feet, about like 12, 13 feet wide. I mean, this thing, we had a guest room in our castle, all right? We got my wife was teacher at the time, and she had a big roll of brown crepe paper, and I was like, perfect for the walls. And so we get that out, we're masking taping everything, blankets, it's massive. And then as we're playing and just jumping into the world of make-believe and imagination, Chloe, my oldest, says, Daddy, it's nighttime in the kingdom. And I was like, all right. So I go and get a couple lanterns, and I turn off all the lights, the LED lantern, and I give her one, and I have a flashlight over here, and they're playing in the house. And all of a sudden, our daughter Roxy, who at the time, I think she was about 3 at the time, she like freaks out and wants to get out the main entrance of the castle. And you can hear her like scrambling, and things are banging, and you can hear like her head like dunk, hitting chairs and the legs of the table. She's grabbing for like anything she can, so she's ripping down the ceiling of our fort, which then sends Chloe into a total meltdown. You're the worst! I don't like you! You're the worst sister ever! No, you're the worst! I just want to get... She's screaming down, they're fighting, because that's what loving sisters do. And they are going through all this, and she's like, Daddy, Daddy, and I'm like, Roxy, I'm over here. Like, come this way. And I was by the entrance, and I hadn't grabbed the flashlight that I had at the time, and I'm over here, and she's trying to, you can hear her still banging. And I finally grabbed the flashlight, and I get down, and I shine it through the doorway, and she said, oh, like completely changed. And like, what am I going to expect in the future? This is a little weird. She freaking out, and they're like, oh, there you are, Daddy. And so comes out, and everything was good in the kingdom at that point. And it was so cool to watch her as she's trying to scramble and follow her dad's voice. But she needed a clear direction and path and what it meant to move forward. And what it meant to move to something better. You see, I realized that even in that, when I was just kind of saying her name, I had to get a little more intentional about how to guide her down the path and clear a way that would be solid for her. So she goes, that's exactly. And her whole demeanor changed when I showed her clearly where she needed to go. That didn't mean it wasn't difficult, because under there, when you're trying to crawl like in between folding legs of chairs and all these things, it was difficult. I mean, she was combat crawling through there like it was Nam, like she's doing her thing and crawling, and got out, but she was fine. There was something about knowing the path to go that changed everything. And I realize in those moments in life that I watch, whether it's being a dad or pastoring or being married or friendships that I have, these kind of things, when I watch these moments where people get clarity, where people go, they have these light bulb moments, I go, every single time there's a common denominator. And Jesus, as we've been looking at this over the last 2 months, the most famous sermon he's ever preached, the Sermon on the Mount, what does it mean to be blessed by God and move in a life that is life-giving for others? Even as Tommy talked about, that we leave people better than we found them, with hope and love and grace. It's all marked by intentionality. In this life, in this way of Jesus, is guided by intentionality, that our footprints would lead people to water, that as people see our path, Jesus continually describes that he is the water and bread of life, that he is the one that sustains us, that our life would be one that when we move, when we go places, our actions would bring people hope, that they go, man, there is something about you, that our words would deliver hope. The way that we talk and the way that we say things and our character would leave an impact long after we leave. And the reality is, every time you and I enter a space, Whether it's with our families, at our job, with our friends, when we go into a restaurant, when we go shopping around in a store, we leave a mark after we leave. The question is, what are people saying about you? What are people saying about your life in the things that you do? Because they are saying something. Everybody that encounters us is saying something about our life. Now you might say, well, I don't really care what people think about my life. I do what I want to do. Snaps and around the world. Like, I'm going to do what I want. We kind of have this attitude of, well, you do you. Me, I'm going to do what I want to do. You guys just accept it. Now, I know that every time that we gather, there's some of us that are still kind of searching, still wondering about God and Jesus and the divine, and that's okay. I love that happens in our community. We have people on every end and in between of the spectrum. Then we have people who go, man, I'm in. I am all in with God. I'm following Him. And I wonder if you're a believer, if you should take the attitude of, I don't care what people think of me. I actually believe that if we are called to be messengers of hope, that our actions, our words, the things that we say, the things we post, the way we parent our kids when they are acting like 18 levels of foolishness in the store, and we're like, and other people are watching, the way that we handle ourselves, I think, based on the entirety of the way that Jesus lived and the way that He taught, I think we should care deeply about what people say about us. That we should go, man, you know what? I want to leave people better than I found them. Like when people look at my marriage, I never want to throw my wife under the bus. I don't want to be a guy that criticizes her. We may have disagreements behind closed doors, but when it comes to, but that's okay because we're human and we're going to have different opinions. And mine's going to be wrong and hers is going to be right, okay? I know that. Been married 14 years. I know the right answer to that question. Yes, dear, I love you, whatever you say. Yeah. Smart man. He's sleeping in the bed, not the couch tonight. But when people see my life out in public, I want it to be the same one that is in private. That when they see me, they go, you know what? And not to bring attention to myself, but they go, there's something different about your marriage. There's something that draws people in. And I want them to go, you know what? I would really like that for my relationship too. That when they see my parenting out and about, they go, man, your kids are really good. And you know what? We really do have good kids. We have 3 girls. So good. They have moments, because they're kids. They're still learning, still forming their brain and all that stuff. But they're good. And people say, why is that? Well, we teach them to honor us, to honor God, and to be thoughtful human beings, ones that bring hope and love to other people. And I wonder if we hear this, if we're giving too much pushback, going, you know what, I'm kind of broken. And I get that every one of us have brokenness in the wake of our journey. If we were to look down the road of your life or my life, we're going to see some collisions. We're going to see some houses that are burned to the ground, proverbially, that are just difficult moments that we have in life where we just go, man, those were hard. That was difficult. And what we might give pushback when we say, what are people saying about us? We might say, well, Jason, listen, I'm kind of broken. And so I want to live that stuff, but this is just the way I am. I wonder if you've heard that before when you've been in conversation with people and you've maybe brought something up. Maybe it was ego or sarcasm or just sadness or whatever it may be. And the response back is, well, that's just the way I am. I would say that if we follow Jesus, He gives us a better way. And when we use the phrasing like, that's just kind of the way I am, if we can be transparent, I think that's a bit of a smoke screen, a bit of a kind of just like facade to say, I don't really want to do anything different than the way I am. I kind of like exactly where I'm at. And if that's not with God on this narrow path and it's over here, I get it. God's loving, God's kind, and God is loving and God is kind, but He calls us to a better way. And I think the fear is if I give up what's happening currently and move forward, it's going to be really difficult. because I've always done it this way. You probably have stuff that's done like that around your house. Like things that have always been done that way, that in the back of your mind, you're like, why do we do this? Like you just question it, but you live with other human beings and one person set the standard. You don't agree with it, but you're like, I'm not ready to rock the boat on that. That's not my battle. But you're just going, why? Like, why is it? Because it's all, and somebody said, because we've always done it that way. Like at our house, we have 2 trash cans sitting in the kitchen. People come over, they go, so you guys recycle? I was like, yeah, we recycle. So which one is it? Neither. They're like, what? Why? Because we live with my father-in-law. And my father-in-law has always had 2 trash cans. I asked him why. He said, I don't know. We always have 2 trash cans. Well, can we make one the recycle one? No, we have to bring recycling out to the garage. Okay. And so now, every time we have people over, do you guys recycle? Yeah, absolutely. Which one? Here, I'll take that. And they look at me very confused. And we walk out. I wonder if the fear of doing it, well, me, I'm not going to rock the boat. Why? My father-in-law is 79. We take care of him and whatever. And you know what? That's not a battle I'm going to fight. I will leave 2 trash cans there till the day that he goes to be with Jesus. But there's things in our life that we've just said, like, we're always going to be with that. And I go, man, we need to get past that. We need to deal with those and address those. But I love what Christine Kane shares. The pain of recovery is much greater than the injury. The pain of what you've gone, those crisis and moments that have impacted you, that you've left in the wake of your life, some of them have happened to you. Some of them you've done. If we're being honest, there's things that we've done along the way. And we go, I know that that's not all that great. I know that that's probably broad path, big gate kind of stuff that's probably more about me. But if I deal with it, it's going to hurt a lot. And so I'm just not. And you know what? You're right. It is going to hurt a lot to deal with it. A few years back, it was about 9 p.m., and I looked over at my wife. I was like, I think I'm dying. She's like, you're dramatic. And I was like, no, something hurts, whatever. And I explained to her, she said, I think you have food poisoning. And I know, if you're married, ladies, I know you say like woman cold is like you're running around and doing all the stuff, and then there's a picture of the man cold, and he's like, and whatever, you're like, guys, suck it up. But this was painful, okay? This is not that kind of thing. I felt awful. And so she's like, well, try to, and not to get too graphic or anything, but like go make yourself get sick or whatever so you can get it out if that's what it is and whatever. I'm like, all right, so go to the bathroom, try to do that. It's not working. So now we're at about 11:30, and I look at her, I'm like, I can't do this. And however, she said, well, there's other ways to clear out your system. You should go to the store, get a little medicine stuff, and it'll clean you up. Yeah. And so I went and did that. And so now we're at about 4:30 in the morning. I got nothing left to give, guys. I am laying on my bathroom floor, and I'm like, for a brief moment, I'm like, I'm ready to meet you, Lord. Like, take me home. Like, it felt so bad. If you've ever been like in that kind of pain where you're just like, I'm done. I can't. And I'm laying there, and I didn't know what else to do. I just fell asleep on my bathroom floor. I wake up, and it's about 10, and I'm still in pain. My wife's like, go to your doctor. And I'm like, I don't want to go to your doctor. And so I go to my doctor, and he does the whole rundown. He's like, I don't know what this is. He said, you need to go to the hospital and get scanned and whatever. So I'm like, all right, awesome. Really glad I paid that copay. And struggle's real. And so I went to the ER, and from the time I got to the ER to the time I was in surgery was 25 minutes. My appendix was about to burst. It was like I checked in. I was like, and she said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "I'm dying." And she's like, "I don't know." I said, "I've had this pain ever since yesterday at 9 o'clock." And I went to my doctor, went here or whatever, did her. And then she said, "We'll take you right back." And they scanned me, got me in surgery. And as I'm in surgery, before we go back there, I let them know, hey, I have kind of a sordid past. It takes like horse tranquilizers to take away a headache. Like I've had some heavy drug use in my past and stuff. And so I'm going to need a lot of that there anesthesia, anesthetic, whatever. I don't know, I'm not medical. And so, and I kind of explain the thing. They're like, oh no, we know our job. You're fine. As they're stitching up the first of 3 little incisions, I wake up. Because I told them so. And so sure enough, they get me down. And so they had to scramble to do these other 2. I would show you, but we're not that close. And for the next 2 weeks was so painful. these two, because of what had happened. But after 2 weeks, I felt better than I ever had felt. That I remember laying on my bathroom floor, and I remember the 2 weeks happening, and there was no greater joy 2 weeks out than being able to like run, jump, and know that I was okay. And we will have pain when we have to address these big things that are toxic inside our system, inside our soul. And I know that they hurt for you because they universally hurt for all of us. These things that we know just are not life-giving, the patterns and behaviors and pieces of the way that we think, the way we criticize ourselves, even this shame that we lay over, all of this stuff. And what God wants to do is use his movement to cut that stuff out of our system, and it's going to hurt. But to move forward so that we could be a light for others, so that we could be someone that changes the scene for somebody. That they would see our life and go, man, you are excited to follow God. That you are just pumped to be a part of this and show your light, and you are just good. Man, I want to be a part of that. And I want to let you know that it's not your job to change people, but does your life inspire people to change? Do people, they're attracted to just being around you. Now, the pushback on this is, well, Jason, I'm kind of introverted, and you know what? I'm just not that kind of person. And my life isn't like that. I just want to say, as somebody who is a fellow introvert, we will unite separately. If you follow Jesus, God gives you the movement of the Holy Spirit to drastically change your life in such a way that the movement inside of you, that you can muster up things. I moonlight as an extrovert for 30 minutes, 4 times a Sunday right here. And then you invite me to your house, and I just stand there like this. They're like, what's wrong with you? This is how I really am most of the time. Like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, I'm just, all right? But God doesn't work. I want people to know that God is a God of joy. That God moves in my life and brings these things to fruition. I go, man, God is good. God is faithful. God is amazing. And I want my life to inspire people to change. I was sitting up here a few weeks back, and we were singing the song, Great Are You, Lord. And the chorus is like, great are you, Lord, it's your... And everybody in the band had been, Prince over there, like, doing their thing. And I'm singing loud. Like, I feel bad for these guys when they take out one of their in-ears because I know I sing out of key. But I turn, and I can see the room, and everybody, like, the entire room's like, great are you, Lord. I'm like, and I don't want you to hear this the wrong way. If you're a believer, and I know for some of us, I'm not the outgoing type, not whatever, please hear this the right way. If your public expression of faith in God's greatness of saving us and giving us joy and giving us a second chance and all these things is, great are you, Lord. Like, I want to sing so loudly about the joy of God that I lose my voice here and I don't lose my voice at the ball game cheering for a team that does not have me on the payroll. And yet, singing the lyrics loudly at a concert of a band that I enjoy, and I'm guilty of this, that I'll come and not express that. I want my life to inspire change, and it all is based on the foundation of where we place our trust. Is it about me and all the decisions on this broad, easy road? It's super easy to be about yourself, isn't it? Like, it's so easy to be like, I'll do what I want. I will, when it comes to a car, comes to a house, comes to relationships, comes when we go out to eat, with the movies that we pick, everything can be about us. It takes so much more intentionality to live a life that draws people to something greater and someone greater. And Jesus talks about this as he's preaching to the people. He shares this in Matthew 7 as he continues on. It says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine, and you, even if you have no connection to faith, you've probably heard this parable or story told. Everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall because it had the foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowd was amazed at his teaching. I want you to know this. We can get this very premise of foundation from the moment we begin with our general dexterity. As we're building with blocks as a kid, we realize that building them on shag carpet, if you still have that in your house, is not going to give the same foundation as when we move to the coffee table that mom and dad are scared we're going to break. We build that up nice and tall. Or we move to the wood floor in the den and we're able to build it up high because the foundation is strong. See, Jesus teaches these things very simply. That's why when people tell me, I need something deeper, I need to go deeper, I go, Jesus was the most simple teacher of all time, and yet the most profound. You and I don't need deeper teaching, we need greater faithfulness. Because the teaching is simple, but he teaches that back then, and I do it, you do it, we still choose in different facets of our life, or maybe our whole life, a broader, easier way that points back to us instead of back to God. And here's the thing that I have a hard time kind of, really laying down on, is God paves a way that while it is hard, he's the one that does the work. You see, his sacrifice beckons you and I to intentionally choose that hard road, but it's not as hard as we think. Listen to these words. It's not going to be on the screen. The writer in the Old Testament, in the book of Kings, in 1 Kings 8, puts it this way. It says, may God, our very own God, continue to be with us as he has been with our ancestors, that he is not going to give up or walk out on us. May he keep us centered and devoted to him as we follow the life path he has cleared. I want you to hear those words, that he has cleared. That this path that makes it very easy to be about ourselves, God has cleared a path that while it may feel difficult, he has already paved the way. He has already set that in motion, that for you and I to go down that, and while we go, man, it's a little tricky because it's a little more narrow, but God, I'm going to follow. God has already paved the way for you, that while it may be difficult, that he is with you. And so there's an easy way of doing it on our own, but if we're honest, and we could march up person after person in here, I bet, of moments where we've done it on our own where we go, oh no, that didn't end well. I probably should have done things differently there. I didn't listen to the wisdom of a parent or a coach or even a boss or a friend that told me that this way was not going to be healthy, and we just try to do it on our own. And sure enough, this way that God has paved, it's intentional, but it's hard. And that sacrifice that Jesus made was intentionally done so that we could get on that hard road. But here's the thing. Travelers that choose that narrow road, that hard one, pay admission by daily dying to self. That when my feet, that I swing them out of bed and I place them on the ground, that day I'm saying, all right, God, this is not about me. This is not about what Jason wants. God, this is going to be about what you desire, about bringing hope to people, bringing them to you, leaving people better than I found them in your name, so that it doesn't draw attention to Jason. When I leave the presence of other people, they just think about me and not about the character that was given to me by God, then that's a bad scene. Because that means I'm doing things for attention for myself, that we're doing things for it to be all about us, to raise ourselves up. But then when people see our lives and we could choose all these things and they see this path, they go, man, there's something different about them. I wonder what it is in the way that they act and the things that they do. Because see, the way of Jesus is marked by intentionality. That our footprints lead to the living water, that our words deliver hope, that our character leaves an impact long after we leave. Basically, the choice that's made is, am I going to choose the Savior or am I going to choose myself? Am I going to choose his way or am I going to choose the way that I think is better? Because while this way is easy, this way is life-giving. This way breeds just a character inside you and I, unlike any other. We could say that this way is the school of hard knocks, but I think at some point we realize that after a while, if we keep walking down the same road of hard knocks, is it the road that's messed up or is it us? Because we're just choosing a harder way instead of doing as God intended. I love the way that his name's Victor Hugo. He wrote Les Mis, which I don't really know much about it because I didn't watch the movie because I'm a man. If you watch, that's fine, cool. You can keep your man card, I guess. But I love the words that he shares here about this journey. You see, there's a future that you and I have from this moment forward. There's a future. There's either we move in this way or we could choose a different path. Because to do the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results is called what? Insanity. So why would we keep doing the same thing, seeing those things happen generation after generation, and instead break the cycle, especially if you find yourself? I mean, all of us need to break that cycle, but especially if you have kids, if you have a family, if you have somebody that you're pouring into, why wouldn't we choose a different path for a brighter future? What he shares is that the future has many names. The lazy call it impossible. That, oh, I'm going down this way and I see that way over there and people say that's good, but looks like too much work, and so I'd rather just stay over here, which we would say, and we just said it, is insanity, that we would stay there in that place. So the lazy call it impossible. The fearful refer to it as the unknown. That we're going down this road and we see over there, we go, man, people say a lot about that, but I've always known this, and while I know it doesn't yield what I wanted, at least it's what I know. And we talked about worry and anxiety in these pieces last week that Jesus spoke on, that we worry about what will happen if I choose a different way. And I want to encourage you, if you choose a different way, you're going to get a different outcome. One that is hopeful, one that shows grace, one that shows mercy, and that lights up the darkness in other people's lives. That shows that there's a better way than this, and it is absolutely beautiful. Yeah, you'll watch life change, things will happen. The way that you speak, the way that you act, the way that you love, the way that you show grace. So when you're driving around in traffic and someone rear-ends you, you don't get out and lose your mind. You get out and you go, it's stuff. And what I want to make sure is that the person that just hit me, even though it might be that, because I want to give you a newsflash, you and I are not that important. Oh, I'm going to be late for whatever. So what? I'm going to get out and see if that person's okay and make sure they're all right. That when the waitress comes and brings an order to our table that was messed up, first of all, she didn't make it. But then we go, oh, I can't believe it, and make a scene in front of everybody, including the people that don't follow Jesus. So then they go, oh, Christians are the people that complain and that are rude. They're already known for people that on Sundays don't tip well. That instead we would go, you know what, it's not a big deal. Why? Because it's food. I have the means to be able to sit at a restaurant, which means I'm not cooking food at my house. Man, I'm going to be thankful, and I'm just going to talk about it, and I might even just eat it anyway because it's not that big of a deal. That we would move differently than the way other people move. And as we look at this future, lazy call it impossible, fearful refer to it as the unknown, but the courageous, the ones who want something different, the courageous embrace it and say, you know what, I accept this challenge to move forward into what is true and what is good, and I'm going to leave that behind. I'm going to watch what happens when people interact with my life and begin to change me. As God changes me from the inside, I'm going to watch the change that happens in them. Not because we look at people as people, not projects, but I guarantee you, you start living the narrow path. And the narrow path doesn't mean that you sit in your house, read your Bible all day, and sing Kumbaya and never go do anything. All right? That's not what that means. So before you go and you start buying all the Jesus gear, please stop buying all the stuff. Wear normal people clothes, do normal people things. Why? Because you're a person made in the image of God that could choose one of two paths. At least pick the path that brings life to you and others. Or you can claim him by name and not by action and keep doing the same things and just say, I'm a believer. And what you're doing in the process, because you are leaving the room different than you found it, but all people see is that you say it with your mouth, but you don't live it by your actions? And why would anyone want to follow you anywhere if you don't practice what you preach? My prayer for our church is that we would be people that walk the narrow path, and we do it with vigor and intentionality and choose him so that other people can see that he is good. Would you pray with me? Thanks for tuning in to the Forefront Church video podcast. Our hope and prayer is that this has left you encouraged and challenged you in your faith. And you might have some questions and some ways that you want to figure this out, and we want to help with that. Head over to forefrontchurch.info, and there's a couple different ways that you can connect. Click the Connect tab and let us know how we can be praying for you, or a staff member can be contacting you this week. Maybe you have just been encouraged by this and want to support the ministry here at Forefront Church. You can click the Giving tab, as well as other tabs that are in there to help you along in your journey with God. And so we're thankful for you. Thanks for tuning in, and we cannot wait to see you again here online on the video podcast. We love you, and we'll see you then.